the witnesses for being here today. I've had a chance to meet with you all over the last few months or so, and again, just really impressive, serious people, and appreciate your testimony here today. Just real quick on the 30-year shipbuilding plan issue and the integrated force structure assessment. The reason why that's in statute on the 30-year is just that the shipbuilding takes a long time. The sub is about 65 months for Virginia-class. Columbia will be longer. Carriers, I think it's year 12 for the Ford carrier. So we need to have that longer sort of perspective, because these investment decisions, again, have they're just years-long impact in terms of how Congress operates. The integrated force structure assessment, again, we look forward to seeing it, but without trying to quibble here, these are two separate endeavors. The 30-year shipbuilding plan is a budget requirement in law, and the integrated force structure assessment, just like the last one in 2016, that was a separate process, a good process. And the reason isn't necessarily to find out what's the top line, how many do we need? It's also about the fleet architecture. What's the composition of the fleet? Because when we talk about lethality, it matters, in terms of being able to see, where we're going over just a one-year budget period. So, for example, in this year's submission, you've got 2 salvage ships. We need them, they're important, but let's face it, the O plans for our near-peer competitors, China and Russia, attack submarines are really the tip of the spear in terms of, what we need out there. And cutting, that Virginia-class sub, again, I just think is at odds with the national defense strategy when you sort of drill down in terms of what real lethality is. So last year, Admiral Richardson, Mr. Admiral Gilday's predecessor, when he was testifying about boosting attack sub production to above the program of record of 2 a year, stated that with respect to our greatest gap between the warfighting requirement and current inventory, there is no greater need than the attack submarine fleet. It's a wide gap, and it's getting wider. So every single submarine counts against closing that gap. Again, at that point, we were talking about going above the program of record. Now we're in a situation where we're below the program of record of two a year. Again, I want to just salute the fact that in your unfunded priorities, you put at the top of the list restoring that submarine. Again, Admiral Gilday, we were up in Groton on Monday, and a couple months ago up in Quonset. You got a real firsthand look in terms of the workforce, the design completion, which you mentioned for both for the VPM and Columbia. What's the Navy's position about execution in terms of adhering to the 2 a year program, and in terms of just, is that a factor in the decision, or was it resources?
So it was definitely affordability in terms of that submarine being cut. If I could make a point about the force structure assessment, and so that work is done, and I think the reason you would benefit from having that inform the 30-year shipbuilding plan is because if we didn't use it to inform this plan, you'd go back to the 2016 assessment. And as you said yesterday, that 30-year shipbuilding plan is the headlights that we provide so that you know where we need to go. So I think if we can have those discussions with the Secretary of Defense, and once he's comfortable with that, I think that is all packaged and ready to come up to the Hill.
Yeah, Mr. Courtney, if you don't mind me commenting on this as well.
Because I have one more quick question. Yeah.
Just quickly about 30-year shipbuilding plan. We agree with you. We understand the congressional requirement. It's a requirement for the Secretary of Defense to deliver. He wants a little bit more time to understand it, and we're going to help him with that. And it's not going to be a long delay. It will, as you think about this 21 budget, you'll have plenty of information and enough time to be able to do that.
Okay, the chairman's plan is to get this to the floor, as you know, on a very aggressive schedule this year, which I support. Regarding Columbia, we talked again up in Groton about the fact that the NSPDF, which at least created authorities for incremental funding and multi-year, is a way of reducing costs. And if there's, maybe you could just comment in terms of whether the Navy's coming to us with more requests in that regard.
Yes, sir. So to your previous question, you asked about numbers per year. Yes, in terms of 2 a year. To close the gap of where we need to be, that's how we need to build. And if you ask me, if I could give you another ship today, what would it be? It would be a Virginia-class submarine. And your question was about the
incremental authorities.
and
Maybe we
so-
want to take that for the
and
record,
so
because I don't want to.
It's not the fund, it's the funding. That's the issue, is the funding that needs to go in that bin. I personally don't care what bin it's in, as long as we can use it to build more submarines. But that's the issue, is fencing that money off. The authorities are terrific and help us tremendously.
Thank you. Mr. Whitman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to thank the witnesses for joining us. Secretary Miley, I want to begin with you.